We pour libation to our ancestors as a deep respect for the heritage they left to us as descendants. Ashe. We pour libation to bring into our midst the esteemed spirit of our ancestors, illuminating their great wisdom and courage. Ashe. We pour libation for those who laid the foundation of civilization. Ashe. We pour libation for those who survived the atrocities of the Middle Passage. Ashe. We pour libation for those who insist that we continue to struggle for transformation and the restoration of humanity. Ashe. We pour libation for those ancestors who made it possible for us to be here to celebrate another Kwanzaa. Ashe, 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 Ashe.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for being here for our 2020 celebration of Kwanzaa. It's unfortunate that we can't gather in the auditorium of the Jefferson School, but we are here nonetheless, and we cannot let this celebration go by without participating. So my name is Leslie Scott Jones, and I am going to be your moderator today. We have a wonderful conversation planned for our opening celebration. I want to thank our elder, Maxine Holland, for opening with our libation. Miss Maxine has been a part of this community for so long, and you all know that she has done so much for Kwanzaa, and so we could not open Kwanzaa this year without making her the first voice you heard. So today we have a discussion with three people who are engaged in helping the Black community in very specific ways in relation to mental health and wellness. Devin Coles is the pastor of Union Baptist Church of Fluvanna County and the founder of Amazing Changes Ministries. With a goal and assignment to minister to the whole man, he has begun the work of connecting faith with science, believing that it is okay to have a pastor and a therapist. He, along with Myra Anderson, serves in several capacities in the city that aid to help conquer the struggle of Black mental health and the mistreatment of Blacks by police officers. He also engages in the fight against racism with the belief that our nation's divide has a lot to do with our segregated worship. During the 2018 campaign run for representative, he worked with Leslie Cogburn as a religious advisor and advocate of the Black community. He and Myra together have started a faith-based support group for Black mental health entitled Can I Get a Witness?, which meets every third Sunday of each month at 6 p.m. Myra Anderson is a Charlottesville native who's been on a lifelong journey of mental and emotional wellness. She's a passionate spoken word art poet, dynamic motivational speaker, writer, and social entrepreneur with the determination of perseverance her enslaved ancestors of Thomas Jefferson's Monticello. Myra is also a peer support specialist, peer mentor, fierce mental health advocate, and founder of Brave Souls on Fire, which is a peer run organization dedicated to Black mental health, advocacy, healing justice, and culturally affirming peers for African Americans. Myra is also currently community fellow at the Equity Center at the University of Virginia, and her fellows project is focused on creating a Black mental health center called Sankofa. Myra has been recognized and featured in several national magazines, including O, and Myra was named 2018 Hometown Hero by Allen and Allen Law Firm. Myra is dedicated to elevating the voices of Black individuals in the mental health system and creating culturally affirming spaces for healing. With compassion and vigilance, Myra uses her personal life experiences of injustice to fuel her in the fight against structural and systemic racism in mental health and creating more spaces for healing. And our third speaker today, Rashonda, specializes in empowering women to discover and accept their true selves and to live a fulfilled life. It is her mission to help women find their true selves. Rashonda has helped hundreds of women to claim their crown using proven mental health tools and self-care strategies. Her philosophy is that self-awareness and self-love are necessary for healing and growth. Because it took her years of doing her own self-work and therapy and failures to discover her own truth. Rashonda is a leader and expert in her industry, and her goal is to change the status quo of seeking help by bettering herself and others. Thank you guys so much for being here and for speaking with us today. So, our first question, and Rashonda, you can turn on your camera. It's okay. We can see you.
I think she was having some technical difficulties.
Okay.
She'll join in when she gets that fit.
All right, no problem. So my first question for you guys is, well, first of all, let me thank you for spending part of your Christmas holiday and the start of KWANZAA with us. I know it's always hard to get away from family and responsibilities at this part of the year, so thank you so much for spending this time with us.
Thank you.
So my first question is, tell us a little bit about Can I Get a Witness? Because this is something new that you two started, and I'm not sure how many people know about it. So give us the 411.
Mara, you want to answer that?
Okay, sure. I'll start and you can chime in at any given time. So Can I Get a Witness is a new peer support group, which basically we're trying to merge faith and mental health. The group is specifically geared towards people of faith who either may struggle with mental health or individuals in the faith community who may want to know more about how they can help people in their congregations who are dealing with any type of mental health struggles. So the idea is to create the conversation. We have so many people who have struggled with their mental health, but they also are people of the church. And if you think about it, it really makes sense because the Black church has been the focal point of the Black community for many years. And at that same time, there have been people who have struggled so much and haven't had environments that are conducive to them disclosing that and healing. So part of what Devin and I are trying to do is just create the space. It's now a virtual space, but when the pandemic becomes better and we're able to do so, it will be a physical space because we want people to know that of faith, that they don't have to struggle alone. They don't have to carry that burden alone. There is a place that they can come and be welcomed and be affirmed in their faith while also simultaneously supporting their mental health.
So I have a question about that. I know I mean, I've known Devin for a minute. Um, known him to the point where, I mean, he baptized my daughter. So, we've known each other. But do you have to be a Christian to be part of this? Are people of any faith welcome?
Do you want me to answer that, Devin, or you?
You can.
It's a faith-based group. So I think that if you are a person of faith, you are most welcome in the group. And so even people who may not have strong faith, understanding that they're coming to a faith group, they're welcome. One of the reasons, and I failed to mention this earlier, that I reached out to a pastor, hey, would you like to co-facilitate this group with me, is because pastors and the words and beliefs and attitudes of pastors transcend down in their congregation. So in trying to create something different and creating a space, a faith-based space, we wanted to make sure, I mean, when you think about it, in some of these churches, if pastor says it, so shall it be, just like that. So I thought that thinking a little bit outside the box, me being a peer support specialist, connecting with a pastor and saying, let's do this. So because it's a faith-based group, we do pray in the group. Everything that we talk about relates to God, relates to faith, but really people just sharing their struggles and trying to understand, get a better understanding of how do faith and, mental health intersect, and what can we do collectively to try to amplify more support in faith communities for individuals who are struggling, but also to raise awareness for church leaders about mental health and things like that. So I think the group is centered on faith. It's centered on Christian principles. Anyone who understands that is welcome to be a part of the group.
That's a great lead into my next question. What is Black mental health, and what makes Black mental health different from mental health? Because we all know that, if it's Black, it's got to be different because we are treated different. So what is the difference?
Well, for me, and I gathering and getting into this, getting involved into this. Shout out to Miles for really setting the fire under me to do so. But in my getting involved and learning about this, I've noticed and realized that when you look into mental health, a lot of times, especially dealing with Black people, the diagnosis is different. When it comes to diagnosing Black people as far as white people. For example, I think we put into the thing, irritability in whites can be looked at or viewed as depression, but it'll be then in turn turned around to say that it is a behavioral issue for Black people. And so for me, Black mental health is something that speaks to the culture. It speaks to the understanding of who we are, where we come from, and the why. And so Black mental health is much more than just simple mental health. It's dealing with who you are and being able to progress into an area where you're successful, even in the midst of what you are dealing with. So that's what Black mental health is to me. It is catering to us, catering to Black people, catering to of what it is that our needs, catering to our needs. That's Black mental health to me.
And I would just add, for me, Black mental health, one, is understanding Black culture, because there is a culture that comes into play when we're talking about Black mental health. And that's a culture that sometimes doesn't make it conducive for us to want to seek help. But that's a culture that draws off of faith. That's a culture that has a history rooted in faith. When you think all the way back to slavery, and the fact that we had faith before we had access to Black mental health treatment, before we had rights, before we had any of those things, we had faith. And when we look back all the way back then and talk about Black mental health, we're looking at slaves who may have experienced mental health, but they did not get any treatment and it wasn't safe for them to do so. All they had to do was keep going. So that created in us this idea that we had to be strong. And then we fast forward and we move to Jim Crow, and then we move to segregation, where we're not getting the same consistent mental health treatment in these places where we're segregated. And then we move to the civil rights movement and we talk about Black mental health, and we talk about the fact that Black activists were often given the label of schizophrenia. That's what they were diagnosed with. And today, that is still one of the number one things African Americans are diagnosed with, and they're less likely to be diagnosed with trauma, even though that's what we experience. And then we look at mental health disparities. We look at the fact that we don't have equal access to mental health treatment. We can't afford it. We look at the fact that when we're talking about Black mental health, that there is provider bias. That's all over medicine. There's structural and systemic racism. It just doesn't go in health. It also is in mental health. So when we're talking about Black mental health, we're talking about the unique challenges, right, that sometimes make it harder for us to get help. And we're also talking about the cultural component of our own culture that goes all the way back to slavery and today. And there are things in that also make it challenging. So it's a conglomeration of all of those things when we're talking about Black mental health. And we're also talking about the economic, social economic status and environments. Studies show that people who are homeless, people who are poor, and people who don't have equal access to healthcare are more prone to suffer mentally. And that's oftentimes is us. So as we're talking about Black mental health, we're talking about all aspects, from historical to present day, and the cultural components that come into play that, again, make it sometimes more challenging for us as individuals to get help. All of those things are part of Black mental health.
Right. And
Also, I want to add in to note too that in dealing with Black mental health, it also goes to the point of finding therapists that are able to cater to our needs. So often, all we see across the board are white people who are trying to say that they are here to serve us, but really they don't understand us. And so we have to deal with the fact that we have, for example, facilities who say they are here to cater or to help to deal with the need of African Americans or Black people, but yet they don't have any Black people serving on boards. There's a misrepresentation of us across the board. And so there's also a misrepresentation for us as far as dealing with therapists. It's difficult to find Black therapists who are able to cater to the Black need. And then also too, again, like Myra said, schizophrenia. You can also find that a lot of times with people, if you talk too much about God in a therapy session, you'll get another diagnosis of saying you're schizophrenic or you're bipolar or some other type of sort. And so Black mental health deals with all of those things, and especially with our group that connects faith with that, is to say that you can have both. You can have God and a therapist.
I like that. So what do you think? We all know that there is a stigma in the Black community about getting any type of medical help, right? That's why a lot of civic organizations and churches do different drives at different times of the year to get people to get flu shots or get mammograms or get their colonoscopies, like, because we have such distrust and rightfully so have distrust of the medical profession. So how do you get past that stigma? How do you engage people in a way that will make them understand and be comfortable with talking about things that have for so long been so taboo in the Black community?
I think that's a great question. Am I coming through clearly?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I think that's a great question. It does piggyback off of what Devin was talking about, just Black people wanting to see and work with their own. From my experience, me being a licensed therapist, I've been on both sides. I have gone to therapy and I am also a therapist. And so when you're encountering that obstacle of finding someone who can combine faith, who you can trust, I think it's about just showing up and being authentic. I think that it's a beautiful time within the Black community where we're no longer being bound by the stereotypes and the status quo of what therapy is. We often, I know even growing up for myself, just learning about the Tuskegee, project, that there is just this automatic, almost embedded fear of white America with when it comes to medicine, when it comes to accepting help. And so when I'm talking about this beautiful time period, buying Black businesses, more Black therapists showing up in, social media and just sharing and saying, hey, we are here, we are trying to serve, we are trying to come back and help our community. That barrier of race does not have to be an obstacle anymore. And so I think the more that mental health professionals, doctors, I see lots of doctors now educating through social media and creating awareness around topics that, primarily are given in other communities, but not in our community. So I think that the barrier of trust is starting to build within our own community as we're creating more awareness.
Great. So, I know that a lot of us, I mean, we all got that auntie, we all got that grandma who, we say, oh, I got my therapy appointment on Thursday. And they're like, you got what? Who you talking to? Why in the world you talking to somebody that don't know you about your stuff? Like, why you putting your business out like that? Why can't you just go talk to pastor? Why can't you go talk to the first lady? Why you putting it out on the street like that? We've all had those conversations, right?
I don't want to take, I can definitely speak for that myself when I talked about going to therapy. And then when I went to become a therapist, often conversations with my mom is that anytime we got into a disagreement, she'd be quick to say, don't try to therapize me. I'm like, Mom, that's not even a real word, but I'm going to let you have it, But it was this constant battle where, she did want me to pray but also just not really understanding what a therapist does. What does it actually mean? And having to take the time to explain. So I've gone to therapy a few times in my life, and it's always kind of like that side eye, like, well, you're talking. Can't you just do that with a friend, or can't you just pray about it? And I'm like, no, there are Christian therapists. So I do want to let anybody listening, know that for myself, I was trained as a Christian therapist for 3 years. And so there is a theological perspective and also a evidence-based perspective that does combine. So when I have those family members, or when I've encountered that even with my mother or my dad, I'm like, do you want a healthy daughter? Can you help me be healthy? Can you tell me how to manage this? If not, allow me to grow in my own way. So that's how I challenge it back to them. And of course, we had our laughs, but I think now they are starting to understand. So that's my personal experience.
So Devin, like what would you say to somebody who came to you for counseling, and how do you move them from a completely Christian or church-based conversation to say, like, how do you get them to say, no, I actually need a different type of help?
Well, first off, one, people that sit in my position and in my seat have to understand that they don't necessarily qualify to answer every question. That's the first thing. I know a lot of times, and even in the Black community, just go to the pastor. All you need is Jesus. You don't need nothing else. And if you seek anything more, then it's said that you have a lack of faith or anything else. That, first off, is a lie. And many a times when I have sat with individuals who I was not able to meet their certain need, I have a connection of people that I can refer them to. Um, and a lot of them, they trust me to be able to connect them with those individuals that'll be able to help to deal with the certain needs that they have or that they may be facing or going through. So with me, because oftentimes in the Black community, we don't go to a therapist, we go to a barbershop, or we go to our auntie, or we go to any other place like that. But however, the thing is this: we go to church, but still, if someone has diabetes, they still go to the doctor to get their annual checkups or their whatever they need. And so, what we need to also understand and realize is that mental health is the same way. If you have an issue that you're dealing with, you have to go to the proper people who are qualified and trained to deal with the issues that you may be facing.
And I would just add, I think part of really trying to combat some of that stigma has to do with just the narrative that we create. We create a narrative specifically as it relates to Black women. We're strong, Black women. We got to be strong. We brag about staying strong. I even think about Alicia Keys' song Superwoman. And I think we need to recreate the narrative that it is okay if we're not always strong, or if we're not that superwoman, or if we need to take our cape off for a little bit. Because I think part of the stigma is around us feeling like we have to bear everything that comes our way. And that's our mental health, our finances, our relationships, our emotional health. And let's not talk about the racism that we have to encounter every single day. At some point, that feels like a bit much. And we don't have many spaces to unpack that. But I think part of getting at the stigma, at least as it relates to our culture, is creating an environment that says it's okay. It's okay if you need help. It's okay to go to the barbershop and talk, but if the barbershop doesn't have skilled counselors in there, you can talk there, but talk somewhere else too. Pastor is a great person to talk to. Pastor knows a lot. Pastor can pray for you, and then perhaps pastor can help or has another congregation member that can help you find additional treatment. So I think part of the stigma is just creating an environment that says it's okay to seek help. Devin a couple weeks ago posted on his Facebook page that. He said, I saw his post, he said, it's okay to love Jesus or love God and have a therapist too. And then I saw a pastor chime in under that and said, and it's okay to be a pastor and have a therapist too. So I think the more that we try and we look to our leaders, particularly those of faith, because at the end of the day, in the Black community, that's a lot of who people are looking to. So we look to these people to kind of set the tone. I think it will alleviate some of that stigma. And then also, shout out to Miss Maxine and Leslie for letting us come on KWANZAA and talk about this, creating more spaces in our community where we have these discussions, creating more opportunities for people to go in and bring education and awareness about mental health. In my opinion, that is how we go about addressing some of the stigma, in our families, in our community, that don't always send us the message that it's okay to seek mental health treatment. And then more people like myself, more peers, more people with lived experience openly speaking about it also creates an environment that is conducive for more people to feel like it's okay to get help and really try to get at some of that stigma.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of people in the Black community, I think we both men and women have a different type of stigma, right? Like, as you said, Myra, Black women, we have been cast, and a lot of times cast ourselves in the role of superwoman, of always being the one that solves the problem, keeps the peace, makes sure everybody else is okay while we neglect ourselves. And on the flip side, we have Black men who have this stigma of feeling like if they ask for help, they're not a man, right? If they show that vulnerable side of themselves, it will be met with such uh, hatred or disapproval that they suffer in silence and don't speak up. And it starts this horrible cycle inside our community where women are supposed to be solving all the problems, but the men aren't talking to us to tell us what the problems are, and then they're mad because we don't know, and we mad because we can't solve it. And like, so what is the role that you see the Black church and this new group, Can I Get a Witness? What roles do those things play in helping us to solve this community problem?
Well, if I can answer that, first off, addressing the issue with the men, the difficulty with men is that we have been taught for so long that in order to be masculine, you have to be disconnected from your emotions, and that honestly is something that I have a tough time understanding or dealing with, especially in the Black community. It is okay to be connected to your emotions. It's okay to be connected to, because your emotions is what make you who you are. And so therefore I deal with my sons with that a lot of times, whatever, especially when they're going through their little issues and things, and they're becoming real emotional. I'll say, hey son, it's okay to have your emotions and to deal with them. However, the thing is, we have to learn how to deal with our emotions. And so that is one thing, especially with this group, that I hope and feel, and later on, possibly I might be doing something with just the men in particular, because men do talk, men want to talk. However, men don't talk quite often because we have the fear of, one, people are not listening, or two, that people are going to be judgmental, or people are going to put us in a certain area or a category. And so what men have to be able to understand is that it's okay to be who you are, and still be effective in the area that you are.
And I'll just add to that, when you said men do talk, yeah, they do, but men mostly talk around men, and they talk in environments where they feel like the barbershop and other things like that. Probably like 2 summers ago, I had an event, a mental health event in a beauty shop. And I was so surprised that so many women came into the space, so many Black women, and the conversation about mental health was unfiltered, and we kind of went all around about all aspects of it. But I had to think about the fact that I had another event a month before that at the library, and there were only maybe a dozen people that showed up at that event. And most of them weren't even African American, even though the event was centered around that. Now, what made the difference was that in the beauty shop, in the Black beauty salon, we were in our own space. And we have so few spaces that are our own. But when we come into our own space, we don't have to worry about all of the extra worry, or I'm not worried about how I'm coming across. Are they going to see me as too loud or too this or too that, or I don't want to say this, but we're free to say whatever we want to say. So if you think about that, this group that we've launched, Can I Get a Witness, is that same thing, creating a space for people to come in and talk about what their experience is. And I will just add that I think that a big part of mental health and what we're trying to do here isn't just us. We cannot solve the problems of mental health in our community with just one group. But you just heard Devin say, and I'm thinking about starting this men thing, and I'm hoping that someone who sees this, what we're doing here from this panel, will then plant a seed of something that they can do, because it's going to take a community effort. It's going to take an effort of the mental health advocates continuing to push for for better services for Black people, for more culturally competent therapists, for more Black therapists, holding all of these people's feet to the fire. It's going to take the faith community getting educated on mental health and stepping up and doing their part. Like, it's all over the place. So what we're doing is just planting one little seed, but we're hoping that from that seed, not only will that grow, but there will be other seeds planted, because this is a big, huge undertaking, and it's simply going to be solved by our group. We're hoping that this will spark a flame that will continue to burn and move into other things. But I think that in looking at mental health in our community, and it's consistent across the state and across the nation, Black mental health, there has to be a number of initiatives going at the same time. And it seems like, well, at least my approach up until this point was going to nonprofits and saying, this is what we need, begging, to no avail, and even the promises that they have, not delivering on those. And so then I kind of switched over and said, okay, well, I know what we need. I've experienced that, and I've heard the stories myself. So when you think about the principles of KWANZAA and unity, and even in us coming together, I'm saying, okay, I don't need to do all that. I can work with what I have in my community, and we can start this right here. And for me, that looks like saying, hey, Devin, I want to start this group. Do you think you can help me with this? We can start some of these things and start stressing them ourselves. And while we're waiting for the larger organizations and systems to kind of get on board, we can very grassroots, the legacy of our people, the way we've done it since day one, we can start to put some of those initiatives forward ourselves. And I think in doing so, we're going to more dictate what that looks like, what the environment looks like, and creating those spaces.
Absolutely. And I think that's absolutely what our community needs. And I would venture even to say that once we do start our own, we won't need theirs.
Right.
It will. Yeah. Go ahead, Devin.
Right. And let me say something too, also to piggyback even more on what Myra said, because something really stood out to me when she said that she had an event at a beauty salon as opposed to having another event at the library. And the thing is that that stands out to me is the fact that she's going into the community having these events. And the issue a lot of times with us, especially in the faith-based area or in the church, is that we want to have everything at the church. And we have to remember that our mission is not to keep everything within the four walls of the church, but if we really want to aid and to help people, we're supposed to do outreach. We're supposed to be in the community. We're supposed to be out there catering to the needs of the people. How are we going to know what they need if we're not out there with them? Jesus was sitting with the disciples. They were fishing, and they said, Master, we've toiled all night and we haven't caught anything. And he said to them, you have to launch out into the deep. And the problem with a lot of people in the church is that they want to stay in the safety net of the four walls of the church and not truly launch out into the deep. They want to be so spiritual, but the Bible says don't be so heavenly that you do no earthly good. And the problem with us is that we walk around as if we walk with Jesus. However, we forgot that we're supposed to minister to the whole need of the person. That's mind, body, soul, and spirit. And so the problem with a lot of us is that we haven't created the space for them to be comfortable. First off, they're not coming to church. So why aren't you going to them? That's an issue. And so,
Yeah.
so what we're doing here with Myra and I is we're launching out into the deep. We're saying you don't have to come to the church, but however, there's still needs, there's still issues, there's still problems that you need ministering to, that you need help with. And so we're here for you.
I think
Yeah,
that,
and I think it's different if you are a person that regularly attends church. But as we all know, there are a lot of Black people out here who have church hurt. Is they went to the church and that is, they did not get any support. They didn't get any help or understanding. So having something and have it be in that particular building, they're never going to cross that threshold ever, because that's part of their trauma. Right. So I think that's the best way to go about it.
And I just want to add to that, just from my perspective with working with people. So when I was working with middle and upper class clients, they would come into the office because that's naturally what other cultures do. They don't have that level of fear that is instilled in the Black community. And so for the past couple of years, I have gone in homes. To do therapy. So as Devin, as you said, not keeping things within the four walls and going out to people, and I do feel like more people in the Black community feel comfortable in their homes. And so a lot more people are coming to therapy when there is in-home services offered. And so I just wanted to add that, just to validate what you're talking about, when you leave those four walls, whether it's through church hurt or there are people who have grown up in nonprofit organizations with ministering and just felt like they were reaching out, not necessarily from the church, just from nonprofit organizations, and just not really feeling connected or understood. And so here I am coming into these homes and trying to repair and just validate who they are and just validate their feelings and their emotions. So I do just encourage, thinking outside the box and still meeting people where they are, because it truly does do a service to them.
So we're going to open it up for questions. So if anybody watching has a question or a comment, or you want to know how to get in touch with any of our presenters today, drop a comment, let us know. We will answer your question right now. But going back to our discussion, we made the decision to have this conversation on the opening of KWANZAA. And I think it is absolutely the conversation we should be having on the opening of KWANZAA. So can you guys tell us how you think? I know what I think, but don't nobody want to hear what I think. So can you guys tell me how you think Can I Get a Witness and Black mental health and having these conversations within our communities, how does that relate to KWANZAA? I'm calling on you, Devin.
Well, when you think about the principles of KWANZAA, the principle of KWANZAA simply basically are dealing with the same thing as far as mental health. When we're talking about community, when we're talking about the support of one another, when we're talking about faith, we're talking about the several different principles that KWANZAA have. Can I Get a Witness? This group and Black mental health, it all caters to the need that we have for one another. It all caters to the advancement of ourselves and defining the purpose in ourselves and the value of who we are. And so I think that's how it all relates and it comes together when dealing with it all in one. If I answered that right.
Yes.
I think I agree with Devin. I think all of the principles of KWANZAA, Umoja, unity, just recognizing the unity of mind, body, and spirit, recognizing that we need to unite, right, as a people and really address some of these things that have our mental health disparities that continue to oppress us. I'm thinking about also Ujamaa, cooperative economics and utilizing Black businesses and things like that. Miss Jackie Martin at the Star Hill Health Center just a couple weeks ago gave out these self-care wellness bags all over the African American community. And if anyone who got a bag, you looked in it and you realized that she made a concerted effort to patronize Black businesses in the things that she put inside of these wellness bags. When you think about Nia and purpose, right? Being purposeful and intentional about what you do to support your own mental health and your own self-care. We need to be purposeful and intentional when we do those things. And then Imani, faith, this whole thing is about faith. We've talked about that already. And self-determination, determining, being taking your own self-determination to lay out what your own mental health and wellness looks like. And I also want to say, when we talk about mental health, a lot of people confuse mental health and mental illness. And they're two different things. Mental health is what we do every day to take care of our emotional and mental well-being. And so that looks a lot differently than mental illness. But I will say that, again, all of the principles are tied in. If you break them down one by one by one, each one of them has something that relates to mental health, and we can be doing, whether we're unifying, whether we're really taking care of ourselves. Because when you think about it, this has been a really, really, really hard year for the African American community in general. When you look at how we've been disproportionately affected by this pandemic, when you look at all the racial unrest, and every time we turn on the TV, there is a brother who has been murdered or mistreated. All of that takes an emotional toll. Just like the day before yesterday, I went to bed crying because I was looking at the story of the doctor who contracted COVID, the Black doctor, and who was mistreated, right? Who wasn't given the proper medical care and treatment. So all of these things have taken a toll on our community. And I think now more than ever, we need all of these principles of KWANZAA. We need them. We need these in our community, and we need to figure out collectively what are things that we can do that continue to uplift and affirm our brothers and sisters, to support them during hard times, to create spaces, whether it's the barbershop or wherever, the coffee shop, that they feel safe unpacking some of this. Where do they have? There's not one therapist in America who will deny the fact that violence and racism and all of these things have had an effect on Black mental health, but that's where it stops. And I'm saying we need to take it a step further. I look and see all of these shootings that have happened in this neighborhood, and Devin and I were both advocating for the same thing. Why aren't we sending crisis counselors into these neighborhoods with pastors to make sure our people are okay? If there was a school shooting, we'd send the counselors to the school. So why aren't we doing that in our own communities? So again, I think each and every one of these principles of KWANZAA are applicable to Black mental health, and are things that tangible, that we can sit down and think about, how can we roll this out, because they are all related.
Yeah. And, I was having a conversation with a dear friend last week. And we were talking about how people have had very different, and in some cases, polar opposite reactions to the pandemic without realizing that they were reacting to the pandemic, right? And I think that's something that Black people always do, right? It's never, oh, I've got this extra thing that's impacting how I react. It is because we are so used to folding whatever is going on into our daily life, right? When you're used to processing trauma without analyzing trauma, you just fold it in and you keep moving, right? And we were talking about how there's been two very different reactions. You either hunker down and start trying to figure some stuff out for yourself and really figuring out what that self-care looks like, or people had the reaction of burying their head in the sand and running away, and literally, in some cases, cutting themselves off even more from people because they just couldn't deal with the extra stress that the pandemic has given us. And I'm not saying either one of those is right or wrong. I don't think there is a right or wrong in it, but what would you guys say? What advice would you give someone about how to deal with the extraordinary challenges that the Black community has had during this year? Because it's really been unprecedented what we've been dealing with. And I think we could all benefit with just a little bit of advice. Like what does self-care look like? And how can we use that going into 2021 to make sure that we're just okay, that we're doing all right?
Well, oh,
Go ahead.
no, you can go ahead, Myra.
I'm going to defer to you while I'm still thinking.
Okay, no problem. I absolutely love self care. And I think that it's so good that you talked about when I was hearing you kind of just share what the Black community has been going through. I'm just thinking about of how often just negative stereotypes and just the images, the violence, it's all normalized. Anytime we open up and we turn on the TV, that we never see the Black community presented in a positive light, and so we have become conditioned that negative things happen to us. Trauma happens to us. It's wonderful that people are often now just connecting trauma with what we've been through, as people would say, oh, that's just life, or just deal with it, keep moving, and often just brushing it under just under the carpet. But now it's bringing more awareness. So for myself, what I want the Black community to know first about self-care is step away from the luxury. You don't have to be on a yacht. Don't believe in, just feed into the hype of what you see, white America saying what self-care is. Self-care is so many different things. For my mom, it's watching Forensic Files. And hey, that allows her to be distracted. She feels like she's learning, and that makes her feel protected and knowledgeable. That's a form of self-care. And so oftentimes when I'm working with people, I'm debunking, and they're like, okay, well, laying down and watching TV is not self-care, or me playing checkers or getting my hair and nails done, that's not self-care. And I'm like, wait, it is. If that's your definition of restoring your soul, of resetting, of feeding back into you, of allowing you to step away from all of the negativity and allowing you to feel restored, whether that's going to the church and praying, or that's going to the nail shop and getting your nails done. So I think that people need to first educate and learn themselves, because what works for me is not going to work for the next. Myself, I love anime. So for me, watching anime allows me to go to a different world. I also do not watch police shows. My heart and my soul cannot take it. I constantly step into other people's lives, so I'm unable to watch the media. I'm unable to watch certain things because it stays with me. So I think it's just important to first learn what works for you, what makes you happy. Take a list of things that when you make you smile, that you feel great, that you love to do, and then try to incorporate those things into your daily life. So that would be my advice to people.
You know what, Rashonda? I love getting my nails done so much. This pandemic got me all upset to the point where I went on Amazon and bought the stuff and taught myself how to do it. Okay. That's
Yes,
how.
yes. Saving coins and also learning to do things for yourself where you can set some music, you can watch a movie, you can add so many different layers of self care. I learned how to do SNS nails myself. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute, this is a vibe. I can light candles, I can just,
Right.
make it my own and my own element. And you know what? It's that part for me that allows me to just say, okay, I can go meet with these 6 or 7 clients, but this time is my time.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and to piggyback on what Rashonda said, I agree totally with what she said. I was laughing too because we bought my daughter a nail kit, and I have all these little plastic nails. I just stepped on one a few moments ago, or whatever, for her little self care thing. But also too, in the church, a lot of times they try to teach that self care oftentimes transcends to mean that you're selfish, and in order to be a Christian, you have to deny yourself completely. But that also, again, I would challenge and say that as a lie, because there's been plenty of times where you'll even see in scriptures where Jesus had to take a moment to go away for himself. And so you have, I oftentimes tell people it's like a bank account. You can't keep withdrawing from it, because if you continue to withdraw and you don't put any deposits, sooner or later it's going to come up insufficient funds. So you have to, at some point, be able to take time for yourself so that you may be able to be in a place and position that if you are one who helps, you have to have help in order to help. You can't give what you don't have. And so it's good to have self-care in order to make sure that you are taken care of. Charity starts at home. And oftentimes we like to say home is the thing that surrounds us, but really that's us.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I will just second and third all of the things about self-care, and it looks different for different people. For me, sometimes I have to unplug. Sometimes watching the news and seeing these images on the Facebook are just a bit much. So part of my self-care sometimes is just shutting it down and focusing on myself. Some people may not think this is a part of self-care, but I have a girlfriend who is just quite funny. And every time I talk to her, she always has something funny to say. And that's part of my self-care. Like, I call her sometimes when I'm down because I need sometimes a distraction from all of those things. Part of my self-care also involves every morning I go on YouTube and type in Black women affirmations, and I take a couple minutes and listen to those things, because society is already telling us one thing, and I don't want to hear that noise, right? So I make an intentional and take a time to hear something else. I have a few people in my life that will pray for me. If I feel like I need prayer, I will call them. Will you just say a prayer for me? I take time to make sure the basic things that we're doing that often get neglected when we're stressed: eating well, trying to get in exercise every day, even if it's just a 30-minute walk. Like, all of these things are part of my self-care. And I was kind of giggling when someone said, Rashonda said about the nails, because I actually bought me a foot spa during the pandemic, because I used to like getting my feet done
Oh,
at
girl.
the shop. And so now I got the little one that is heated and it keeps the temperature. And I just sit in there with my playlist, and I have a playlist for everything now. Every mood, I have a playlist. I put on my playlist and put my feet in the foot spa. I rest. We often don't rest. Take rest when you can. I rest, I exercise, I try to eat well. I try to surround myself with people, and family included, who are only positive, loving, and affirming when I already know that I'm struggling and it already seems like a bit much. I connect myself on social media when I'm on there in Black spaces with Black people who can relate to my Black experience without me having to give them a whole historical background of why I feel the way that I feel. And I make sure that when I'm most vulnerable and struggling, that's when I turn up on the self-care, and that's when I turn down on anything else that's not helping me to restore my mind, body, and spirit to where it needs to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, I absolutely agree with all of that. And the only thing that is different that I do is that every morning when I get up, you know, um, it's said that if you have gratitude, abundance will come to you. So every morning before I even get out of bed, I meditate for 5 minutes, and then I list all of the things that I am thankful for, right? Whether it's people or situations or lessons, whatever it is, whatever has helped me to be where I am right now, I know that I have to show gratitude for it so that more prosperity and more abundance will come to me. And that always helps me get in the right frame of mind for my day, whatever I'm about to deal with, right? We are out of time, y'all. We could have this discussion for 4 hours. I know we could, because we are all talkers. But, I just want to thank you all so much for helping us to open our Kwanzaa celebration today. It was absolutely amazing. And please, Devin, how can people get in on Can I Get a Witness?
Okay, well, to be able to get on to Can I Get a Witness? One, we meet every third Sunday of the month at 6 p.m. You can go on to Eventbrite and type in Brave Souls on Fire, and they have it listed there. Or also, too, Myra has it on her page via social media, Brave Souls on Fire, or you can go to my social media, which is Amazing Changes Ministries, or my personal, which we post there too. and you can connect and join on to that as well. Now, I will say, make sure that you go in as soon as possible, because the last time we had people from Alabama and all over that was part of the conversation. So make sure that you join on so that you'll be able to connect with us.
Thank you guys so much. This was an amazing conversation. And I hope everyone has a wonderful first day of Kwanzaa. So if you guys have not looked at it, we have several things going on for Kwanzaa. We have 2 more events. On the 28th, we have Andre Gould, who will be presenting a financial wellness presentation. And on the 29th, we have my friend Joshua, who has done a series of barbershop conversations in Baltimore, and he has filmed them. So we're going to watch part of his barbershop talks, and then he's going to talk to us about them for our community conversation. So thank you all so much for being part of our opening Kwanzaa celebration, and we will see you on the 28th. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon, everyone.